All right. Good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good evening also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us wherever you are watching from. As you all know, every Saturday we try to make it a point of doing a rundown of the goings on in entertainment and pop culture, if you will, in our segment known as This Week in Pop Culture. I know we typically do it in the morning, but there's a lot going on. There was a lot going on today, not just on my end, but also on my co-host's end. And then also, we weren't here last week, so we really wanted to, make it a point to dive into some of the stories. And there is some, carryover from last week of the show that we didn't do. So without further ado, let's dive in. And of course, I won't be alone in talking about some of the goings on that happened this week in entertainment and pop culture. So it's my pleasure to welcome back with me my co-host, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir?
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? How are we doing today? I'm feeling great. Happy Mother's Day, first and
Of
foremost.
course,
Shout out to
absolutely
the
happy Mother's Day.
mamas. Shout out to the
Yes,
mamas.
shout out to the
So,
mamas. And I'll say this: shout out to the mamas, like in however way you want to, provide that title. Because as we will know, you have moms out there that are, biological moms, but we also have moms that, take on that duty, whether someone is their blood or not, and they,
yeah.
have that role in your life. So whether they are blood or not, and you call them mom. Happy Mother's Day to all of those folks who have taken on that duty and that role. um so first off, Spills, I know we weren't here last week. Happy birthday, sir. Happy
Oh,
belated.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
um
Thanks. Thanks,
of
ladies and
course,
gentlemen.
just like we do this typically over here, like over here on the show. If it's a birthday, we try to just do a bye. If we're talking sports, we're doing a bye week. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't really make all that much sense, to be doing a show if we have folks that are celebrating a birthday. You only get one day out of the year, right? And so it's up to you how you decide. You want to spend that day versus being here on the show. We lost Spillman there just for a second. See if we can get him back. Okay, there we go.
I'm back. I'm back.
No, you good. You good. So there were a lot of things that went down this week, Spillman. So without further ado, let's dive right in. I wanted to get into some of the local stories that happened over the course of this week, and there were two ones that I wanted to dive into. And just as you see, in what we have down there below, we had two that I thought was worth discussing. And one deals with the carpet situation on the M-MATA trains, so our subway system here in the nation's capital, but also with two DC area colleges that have made the new Ivy list, that being University of Maryland College Park and Georgetown. So Spillman, I know you had a chance to look over these stories that happened over the course of this week, and what are your thoughts on these two things? One, which is something that I know both of us take advantage of, being here in the city, which is our subway system, but also with how awesome it is to have two schools that have been recognized in that category of being, a part of that new Ivy list.
Um, so to start off with Wamata and the new carpets, I feel like carpet in a public transportation situation can be dicey. It can be dicey. There are times that, you know, things happen because, humanity is chaotic. Um, I'm interested in what the new carpet does. I do like how the new carpet feels. Like I remember when the 8000s came in, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Some of those were carpeted, and you can like feel the nice plushness on your feet when you're walking when you're riding the train. So that's good to me. As far as the new Ivy list for Georgetown and University of Maryland, those are great institutions. I think that they do very good work in the community. I think that they deserve it. The question I have though is like with an Ivy League situation. I guess I could put Georgetown on the level of a UPenn, and UPenn is in the Ivy League, I think. But I feel like it's such a great institution, Georgetown specifically. I know a lot about the University of Maryland also, but that's just very interesting to me. What about you,
I
Brandon?
will. I was going to say. I will say this, and I'll go into a little more detail about it. A bit, and this is from the Forbes criteria that they utilize. They have some prerequisite distinguishers that they utilize. But to go into more detail about those two schools specifically, is as I said, we have University of Maryland and we have uh, uh, um, Georgetown, and they actually have them into distinguishing them in two separate categories according to what they have with their criteria with Ivy. So in this, again, shout out to Forbes in terms of them having this as their list of new Ivies, so to speak. So for University of Maryland College Park, and this is going directly from what they provide here. University of Maryland has been placed in that category because it attracts high achievers and turns out a very effective employees, highly regarded, hardworking employees. So it's listed under those public Ivies. And then for Georgetown, they have it listed as their criteria for a private Ivy because according to what they have determined, it tracks the smartest students and plaudits from employers. So the applause from employers. So I feel like more so with George with College Park, I'm more well versed than Georgetown per se, and that's only because by virtue of my high school, so many of the folks from my high school have made the leap from high school to College Park because it's right down the road. So many of friends that I have made a very distinct and impressive career for themselves by virtue of the education that they have been able to secure at College Park. And I've even had friends where they have, whether they have had their entire careers at College Park or have been transfers to College Park, that pedigree of being at that school has been, invaluable in terms of where their career paths are taking them. And I feel like, it's funny. I promise you, I am not a spokesperson for University of Maryland, but I'm just saying this by virtue of uh, what I have witnessed and what I have seen with folks that I know that are alums of College Park. They seem to have been. It provides them with great preparation for what they do once they leave from their undergrad degree. I don't know if you have any, more well versed anecdotes with those from Georgetown. I mean, I know I
Actually,
will.
that's what I was going to say. I feel like Georgetown is really on the new Ivy list because of how prestigious like the law school is at Georgetown.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
that would be my only connection of knowing Georgetown is that
yeah,
the folks that I know that are in that industry of law and have that that prior degree at Georgetown, they have also, gone on to lead impressive careers as
yeah.
well. But I mean, that would be the only industry per se and thinking about Georgetown, and at least in terms of my circle, that I have seen, that connection. When it comes to College Park, I've seen it in, across a whole bunch of industries, whether it's in business, whether it's in, uh, um, I'm trying to think. So business, uh, um,
Exactly.
in in some of the other degrees that we have, English degree, like all types of degrees. So, but yeah, now in relation
I feel
to,
like I feel like the people that are at Maryland do more things a little bit more nationally, but the people
yeah,
at Georgetown kind of run the hill, and that is like a national
yeah,
thing.
it's very, and I'm glad you brought that up. I would say it's very niche. Like
Yeah.
if you're going into Georgetown, I feel like you have a kind of a pretty definitive path that you are seeing yourself go for your career. And I've seen it like at College Park where, someone may start their career thinking that they're doing one thing. And, they may go through an entire journey over the course of their undergrad and figure out that, that they want to go a completely different way. And there's so many, impressive departments that they have there. Not to say that Georgetown isn't good either,
Oh,
but
also, I feel like Georgetown has a better hospital.
yes,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I feel like that the sciences part, like a lot of doctors go to Georgetown, so
yes,
like
agreed.
that's another thing. Like, but I feel like both do different things differently, and it's like I feel like Maryland does more technology stuff.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, and I feel
yeah.
like that's a
So,
big thing. So I don't know.
but
I
I
feel
was
like
gonna say
it's
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say in reference to the subway, and that carpet situation, and a lot of folks, it's funny, a lot of people within my circle when I was sharing the story this week is just that idea of efficiency. A lot of times when I'm thinking of the prior models of the subways, because of the carpeting, because of how the seats were made, and how they were, what material was used, it was very easy, I feel, for them to get, damaged, or get stained, with all types of foolishness that could happen on the subway, unfortunately. But again, you're in a city, it's in a major city, it doesn't matter where you are. If you have a subway system in any major city, you're going to have your issues. But I feel like it allows things to be far more efficient in terms of being able to maintain the quality of what's on the subway in terms of like seating and just the overall presentation of the subway. So that way you don't have like a horrible experience being able to travel on a subway. So I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that. If not, then we'll move on. But did you have anything else to say on either account, whether it's with, the story with our Ivies
I
or
just
the
hope
subway?
that now that these two schools are new Ivies, they
Yes.
put some of that money on the basketball teams and start to win again. Like you talk about these schools for 20 minutes, not talk about the basketball teams. They both got national championships, but
They do. They
it
do.
feels like those were centuries ago. So get back
Yeah.
out there,
No.
fellas.
We are out of that time of our Steve Blakes and our Juan Dixons and our Stevie franchises, Stevie Francis. Man, those were the days, man. Those were the days. But fitting that you talked about. And I see what you did there. I see exactly what you did there, sir, with that assist. I appreciate it. We're going to talk a little basketball. So, as you guys well know, we're like right in the middle of the NBA playoffs, and there are a couple of things that did go down. We did have, a couple of changes with our coaches, a hiring of a new coach over at at Phoenix. You were able to avoid this conveniently because of your birthday last
Yeah, I was
week,
like,
but also, yeah, right. You had a firing of your head coach as well, sir. but we also had, some and this is congratulations to some of our players. We did have our NBA awards. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Give me 1 second. See if I can get that up on the screen right now. Um, but while I put that up, Spillman, what are your thoughts on of course, Darvin Ham. I'd be remiss not to bring
Oh,
that up of him being let go. Uh, do you feel like it was warranted, or do you feel like he's just the latest in the scapegoats in this saga known as being in LeBron's orbits for the
well,
team that he
I
has?
will say if you lose 12 straight games to a team, like generally you could lose your job for something like that. Like I understand you could lose 12 straight games. Like, 12 straight games sounds bad, but like 12 straight games that we told you, hey, get ready for this game. This is the game we care about. We need you to win these games. At least win one of them, just one. If he could have won one of the games this year, that 20-point loss in game two, I feel like that's when he was really done. Sure, he was probably going to be done anyway.
I think it was before that. You might disagree with me, but I actually believe it was based on your homeboy's little passive aggressive remark about not feeling like they were prepared in their matchups. Your boy, street clothes, Mr. Anthony Davis. Like, I don't think that helped the situation of kind of creating that narrative that like their coach doesn't properly, prepare them for their game. So I'm sharing this now. I got it up here now. So I wanted to, go through briefly some of these awards, and this is on the NBA website. So of course we have the MVP Nikola Jokic, aka Joker. We had some other people that that were runners up. Of course, Luka Doncic, who is still playing right now in the playoffs. Shy Gilgis Alexander still playing, and then as I said, Jokic, aka Joker. All three of them are actually still playing. None of them are eliminated with their respective teams, but I know there has been some things said, in terms of if it was deserved that Jokic should have gotten it, the third time in a row, or if Alexander should have received it. But while I feel like, Alexander might have been the sexy pick, so to speak, you can't deny the overall consistency that Jokic has demonstrated over this year. So I feel like, that makes the most sense in terms of what we have there with our MVP. But, what do you feel about that, Spill, before I get into some of our other awards?
I feel like Shea did have the better year.
Okay.
Um, I think
Okay.
Shea had a better year. I think that you know, the way that the Thunder, the Thunder were like a playing team last year, and they made a jump. They made a
Yeah. Yeah.
complete jump. Um, so I just feel like because they made that jump into real respectability, that I feel like they had that stat. Have you heard the Phil Jackson stat?
Go
He
for it.
says that
I probably have. Go ahead.
a team is a championship contender if they win their 40th game before their 20th loss.
Mm, okay.
So they did that this year. So I just feel like sure Chet was added to that team and Chet added a lot on defense, but the way that he has that offense going, I feel like he just really did it. I feel like this was a down year for Jokic. I don't feel like he had the performances he had last year. Like last year, he was definitely just destroying stuff. But we'll see. Maybe this will give him the ammo he needs to turn it around against this Thunder team that's smacking him around. So we'll see.
Yeah, indeed. I guess what I'll say is this, and this is kind of going towards what you said, is I don't think anyone anticipated that the Thunder would have the type of year that they've had this year. This is not to say that they're not, a team want to come up, that they're not a talented team. They are. But I feel like, a lot of people probably assume that maybe they would be right there in the middle, like mid tier, and versus being at the top of their respective conference. So, considering that, the expectation and far exceeding the expectation that, perhaps folks had, I could see how a lot of people would argue shy, and also considering outside of Chet, who is for all intents and purposes based off of the convenience of not being playing that first year. He's in essence a rookie. uh I don't feel like people were really giving them the benefit of the doubt, even though they have some young talent. I feel like if you look past Shy, there wasn't anyone else there that they perceived that would be able to continue to carry that load outside of him. And I would say with the Nuggets, I feel like Jokic is kind of taken for granted on how how valuable he is to his team. But at the same time, you do have other folks on that squad too. Like, Murray is not a scrub. Murray
Not
is,
a scrub.
yeah, he is not a scrub. So like
The
he's
non-gambling Porter brother, not a
yeah,
scrub.
scrub. So like, I mean, you have, and then you
Aaron Gordon,
I was about to say your slam dunk champion.
not
Or
a
not
scrub.
champion. What am I saying? He should have been the champion.
Oh yeah,
Should have been the champion. But I digress. That we could spend a whole other like episode just on
it's a
how he
whole nother
got
show.
robbed on a slam dunk competition. But they arguably have a squad. So I could see how people could argue for Shy by virtue of having that that nice of a supportive cast versus those on the Thunder who have played beyond what
I
people
don't know none of them dudes'
gave them credit
names.
for. Exactly.
I don't feel
Outside of
like if Chet wasn't real skinny, I
outside
would know who he was.
outside of Chet and Shy, like, is there anyone else that if you are a casual basketball fan that people could probably name? You would be remiss. You would be remiss.
It's like, I don't know who these dudes are.
Yeah.
So that's
So
why I feel like, but
but outside of that, like I said, I wanted to also additionally get into the situation with our son's head coach as well. So in speaking on that, what are your thoughts on Mike Budenholzer um agreeing to a 5-year deal of being the new Suns head coach?
I wouldn't have signed a 5-year deal there because that team is going to be broken up in two. Like
Yeah.
this team's going to be broken up in two. I feel sorry for
And poor
Frank
and poor
Vogel.
poor Vogel, man. This is like
It's like they gave him a worse version of Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, and like worse, and like he shrinks in the wrong times. Like I saw so many plays, just like he did here in DC. I see so many plays where like 5 minutes left, we can't have a turnover here, dribbles off his shoe. Like it just seems like he's like always the usual suspects. And he didn't play but like 32 games something like that this year. So I don't know why you would sign with the Suns. I get it. I get it. It's not the Lakers. He didn't want to sign with us. But we're gonna get JJ. We're gonna get JJ, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna get JJ. That's what they said.
so
LeBron's out here
what about
recruiting.
your homeboy being a player coach? You don't want to see that?
No,
Why not? I
no.
mean, he's
He's too
demonstrated that
passive
he has
aggressive
too
to
much
do it.
influence
He's
anyway,
too
so why
passive
not make
aggressive.
the coach?
I feel like Bill Russell was a man of principles and he was stoic. So like he could do it because like he told them, hey, this is how we're gonna play defense and we'll win many championships. Um, I don't feel like that's the same thing with LeBron. I feel like people be like reaching when they say that. Like Bill Russell isn't the greatest winner of all times. Like that's kind of like Tom Brady being his own coach. Like I understand Tom Brady being his own coach, but LeBron needs a coach. You look at like when he was in Miami. He was coached. That's how he won in Miami. Um, when he had when he won the one in Cleveland, kind of was like a lucky one. So I'll give him that. It was kind of a lucky one. I'll say that. But I don't know. Budenholzer was good, man. But the Lakers and all these teams. How I have a question for you.
Okay.
How has what's the coach in the Clippers coach?
Oh, Tyronn Lue.
How has he kept his job? Because they have gotten like watched a superstar after watched a superstar to try to get him a good team, and they've lost in the first round all the time, and no one talks
I
about it.
want I want to say I'll say a couple of things. One, I'll say because of his pedigree of what he's done prior to being at the Clippers, he's already demonstrated what he is capable of outside of being with the Clippers. And then also, it's really all about the circumstances that you're in. Um, it's all based on like who you have in in your organization. If you're going to have an organization that is very fickle and they're going to like at the drop of a hat, if you're not having a season that they deem is effective, then you're out of there within the year, which is unfortunately the case right now with your Lakers, where it
That's the
doesn't
thing.
seem.
Look at his record. He was 90-74. That's crazy to fire somebody. The Wizards wish they could have had a coach that
But
went
I'm
90 and
and that's what I'm
74.
saying. He got y'all to a conference finals his first year,
His first year.
his first year, and
And they had to trade all them bad players that they had on there.
his second year still managed to get you guys in the playoffs where under any other circumstance with that roster, there's no reason how you guys could have gotten into the playoff picture. I don't know if you want to be objective about that. Maybe you're
No,
not.
I agree. I agree. I actually think
So
he got fired because LeBron is old.
yeah, or I would say even more so than this, that like unfortunately, it's not an organization that is accountable. Where a lot of times, they look in terms of looking yourself in the mirror and understanding that, I want to. I'm trying to think of the guy who used to be the president of our Warriors, Bob. He's not the president of basketball with the Warriors any longer, but
Bob
he was,
Myers.
yeah, he was a part of it during our dynasty. And he's been quoted, and I'll paraphrase it, but in essence, one thing that he brought up in talking about, because he mentioned this about the Lakers, is just that idea that when the Warriors lost to the Cavs that year, they lost to LeBron. What was that?
16.
Yeah, 2016. So in that year in 2016, and they lost, and he had an interaction with Kerr. He talks about this. He had an interaction with Kerr, and Kerr talked about, man, I should have done this and I should have done that. He could have easily, seconded that and doubled down on that, and really kind of discouraged his coach. But he took ownership of that as well, and he talked about that conversation that he had where he was like, look, man, like, we need to help you, give you the necessary tools to be successful as well, to be able to take ownership of that. Because he's saying, hey, we win together, we lose together too. That's just a component of what it takes to be a successful organization. A lot of times, and he discussed this as well, we have those teams and those organizations that, even though they may not win a title year after year, they do a pretty decent job of keeping their squads together because of the nature of the organization and how they treat those folks in their organization. And being, if I'm quoting Drumline, one band, one sound, like being successful together, and also taking your lumps as well as an organization, instead of trying to find scapegoats and folks to blame, taking ownership of that success or that failure together. So that seems to be something that I feel like the Lakers could use a little bit more of. But
I feel like you're hating by saying that. Since LeBron has been here, we've been to two conference finals and won a chip.
yeah, but you're still very fickle in terms of the squads, and you can't deny this. The squad that you had that got you guys your 2020 title, y'all should have kept.
We
Y'all
should
would y'all
have.
y'all if y'all kept them, you would not have an issue with the Nuggets
We
because
wouldn't because we'd have
you would
Caldwell
have
Pope.
enough people, to throw at Jokic, and you would have that defensive intensity with your wing players. So and to see again that's by virtue of the organization making a decision like, hey, we need to keep this squad together versus, oh, we could do better than that. Let's see if we'll just let them go and see if we can find something better, not knowing that what you have there is adequate enough to compete for finals in the years following that title run. So, but I'll leave it at that. Do you have any other like
I
additional?
just will say, as we creep to 40, it's over for the old guys in the NBA.
I agree. I
This
agree.
is really why people got fired. It's because all these guys are old. LeBron is old. The
You're definitely
Clippers
not.
are old. The Warriors,
Yeah,
they're old.
yeah.
Everybody's old. So,
I'll give you that. I'll give
you
you that.
know,
I can be objective about that. I
yeah.
definitely
If we weren't
can. All
so old, we would win a little bit more. But
right.
you know.
All right. So getting into some of our film and TV news, there were a couple of things that happened that we had. We're going to talk about some general things, and then we're going to go far a little more niche with our additional film and TV news. But right now, we'll talk about the Office follow up, receiving a full series order from Peacock. The news that Riddick Furia is starting production later this year, and also us getting a new series of Lord of the Rings films, starting with one following, fan favorite character Gollum. Spillman, you hear the news about, some of these stories. One regarding a series that I'll be honest, I was a late bloomer for, but I do, enjoy that show, and I feel like they should just leave it as is versus, two films. One which I feel, kind of needs to to come to an end, and then the other that, has such an impressive pedigree in terms of how critically acclaimed those initial series of films are, and being able to follow that up.
Oh yeah. So starting off with The Office, one of the all-time great sitcoms, like maybe one of the last. You could argue it's maybe the Shack of sitcoms because it was the last really, really, really big one. After that, the form kind of died. It like people tried to beat imitation ones, like shows like Parks and Recs, Community. All those shows are just knock off offices to me. But that's another show for another day, ladies and gentlemen. Interested to see that from Peacock. Good for them. It's kind of weird that look, stream's taking over. They're ordering it on Peacock to make people go watch it. So I get it. I get it. This is business. That's money. That's money. I feel like I'm the reverse on you. I would rather see the Riddick movie with to see where Furia, where if he's going to the land of his like
Yeah, he is.
glass-eyed
Yeah, that
people.
character is. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
give you that. And
But
there's
like
been so much hype surrounding that destination, so I get it. I get why you would argue that would be more anticipated for you than another
yeah,
Lord.
because like a Gollum movie, I don't want to see him eat fish for 300 years. That doesn't sound entertaining to me. Some weird dude living
Well,
and
I
eating
will say this.
live fish. Not even like I'm gonna skin the fish or anything. He just takes the fish and puts them in his mouth. He doesn't even eat potatoes.
So I will say this: out of these three, I'm most excited regarding getting more Lord of the Rings. And the reason being is, as I said, The Office. I love that series. Apparently, this new show that I believe it hasn't received its upcoming, or hasn't received its official title. It will be taking place in the universe of The Office at another organization, another company. You can't really replace that impressive group ensemble of actors that you have from The Office. And it's going to be hard to be able to replicate that. I mean, yeah, you're going to have that mockumentary type of style of having those characters, looking towards the screen when anything like wacky or hilarious happens. But will we connect in them the same way that we did with that group of characters that we had from the initial series? And I feel like that's going to be really hard to replicate, and you're really placing yourself in a dangerous situation of automatically comparing the whoever is heading, that company in the spinoff series to Michael, and then also comparing the other characters to the other, characters that we, folks that enjoy that show have come to love as well. So I feel like that places you kind of in a dangerous situation of drawing comparisons immediately. Sound like you had something to say. Go ahead.
I have a wrinkle that could maybe make this show work for you.
Okay.
If they got Ricky Gervais to write the new universe show, because
Okay.
obviously he's the creator of the old
Of course.
Office,
Yes.
and
Yes.
his like style is basically like how they like got that. Obviously, Steve Carell took Michael Scott because Michael Scott and Brent are very different characters.
Yes.
Like I feel like Brent is mean, even though he's stupid, but like Michael Scott is stupid, but sometimes mean. Like like
Yeah.
it's a different kind
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
ball of wax. But if they could get Ricky Gervais, just like you said, that if the writer could be right. So I don't know.
Yeah. So that would be my issue with the Office spinoff. My issue with the Riddick one is there has been so much. I love Pitch Black. I love the first installment of this Riddick franchise. The second one, Chronicles of Riddick, was okay. They were able to make up for it in Riddick in the third installment. I feel like it's slightly better than the second one, because it goes back to kind of that grittier, I hate to say, like ultra violent nature of what we have come to expect out of that character. I feel like because there was such a greed of trying, and I will say greed, there was a greed in terms of trying to bring as much many audience, to expand as much audience for that franchise as possible, that they kind of watered down, I feel, the Riddick character in that second film. If anyone recalls, like that second Riddick film was PG-13, and then they went back to their roots of making the third installment rated R. There has been a lot of hoopla and a lot of hype surrounding this place that the titular character is from. So I don't know if they're going to be able to live up to that hype. I don't know if they're going to be able to live up to that hype at all of doing that location, especially if we're picturing the amount of resources that they're going to have to be able to do this installment. I know, if I recall, like they did have a increase in that second film, but because that second film didn't hit the way that they anticipated it would, they had they had a little less to work with in the third installment. And seeing that the third film, it's been a while since we've had that installment. My guess is that they're likewise not going to have, I mean, it's not going to be an independent film by any means, but you know I don't know, with the resources that they have, that they'll be able to live up to the hype that they have established for this destination of Furia. um
But I feel like it could actually be a fun movie. Like, how can you make a fun movie about a guy who lives under rocks and eats live fish? Like, I get, like, we'll see how he got the ring But Schmiegel was not a good person before he got the ring, and then he's just like in a hole somewhere. Like
I
I
guess
get
I'm
that,
more
like
excited about, which is why I have the Lord of the Rings film, and just to give you a little more detail, according to the story, it will be directed by I'm brain farting
Peter
on
Jackson.
no, not Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson will be involved, but Sudeikis, brain
Andy
farting,
Sudeikis,
huh?
or is it Andy Sudeikis
No, no,
or
Andy Serkis, excuse me. I'm
okay,
thinking of Jason Sudeikis, but Andy Serkis, excuse me,
yeah.
will be directing this film. So, in speaking to that, I guess what I why that's out of these three stories, what I'm more excited about is that I love the world of Lord of the Rings, and based off of what we have gotten recently, with the series, I know it's been mixed feelings, with those that, that did didn't like components of the series and those that like it. Um, I'm not very precious about, the lore of what I've read, in Lord of the Rings books and novels or stories. So, it didn't really bother me that much, for some of some of the things that they changed up or some of the things that they did. So, in considering that, I'm very much looking forward to what they're able to do, with this upcoming story. And then on top of that, to be able to revisit, some characters that we have had and some creatures that we have had in prior films. So, with the possibility of that, revisiting that world and characters that can revisit, some creatures that we can, reintroduce, or even new creatures that maybe we haven't, that have been teased in other installments, and we have yet to see, but have the, possibility of seeing in these new films. I'm looking forward to that, and to still have, even though you don't have all the team being in the same roles, I actually feel that that's better, because so oftentimes, a lot of times a studio will try to recapture that same magic from a prior installment, especially when there's been years and years away from it, where they'll
Yeah.
still have those same people in the same roles. At least in this situation, you have the same team, so you still have the spirit of those initial films, but creatively, I was going to say creatively, you have that ability of things being done, in a fresh way, because, someone doesn't have the possibility of of losing their mojo, so to speak, creatively, because they're not getting burnt out in that same position in working in that same franchise. So
But I
yes,
feel
you
like deep fantasy has such a like when you're dealing with deep fantasy, it can get hokey really fast. Like when you're doing sequels on sequels on sequels, like to me, I feel like maybe they could do like a like I get that because Golem is the one with the ring before Bilbo Baggins gets it in the lore. I get that that's important to see where the ring was, but like the only way I can see this movie working is if they kind of explore like on the first Lord of the Rings when Frodo first takes the ring from Bilbo and Bilbo turns to that monster for a second,
right.
like how that slowly becomes Schmiegel into Golem, that will be kind of cool to look at. But I mean, like,
But they did that. They did that in they did that
but
in
that's what I'm
Return of the
saying.
King.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how much more do you need from someone like that? Is my point. And Riddick got eyes that are reflective, like a dog in the night, and that means he
Yeah,
got
but
that dog in him.
outside, I guess the only reason why I
He
feel
gonna
that
be
way,
flexing on people like this. He's gonna be like,
I get it. I get it. But like, outside of what they have done in the other films, like, where else? And yes, you are going to Furia, but like, what else is there to do? Because even though the third installment, like I said, was slightly better in my opinion than the second film, it in essence has the same beats as the first movie. Like the Riddick basically has the same beats as Pitch Black. He's, trapped on this planet, on this desolate planet, and he has these like dangerous, ravenous creatures that he has to contend with. Like they're essentially, you have the same creatures that you have in Pitch Black. You have their cousins. They don't say this, but if you look at the design of the creatures and some of the things, while the creatures are cool, I'm not going to deny that the creatures aren't cool, but like in terms of their design, they're relatively similar outside of maybe not being able to fly, similar to the creatures that we had in Pitch Black. Like, so, I mean, you can nitpick over certain things. They didn't fly, or they weren't allergic to sunlight, or things like that. But in essence, they were the same thing. They were the same thing. So, out of those three, definitely looking forward to Lord of the Rings more so than the three. I know for you, as you said, which is why I'm glad I have you here, because we're
I
not
feel like
always
Riddick is going to
agree.
be better. I like Schmeagle, but and then it's going to be all motion capture, so it's just going to be stuff to make your eyes hurt. Oh, yeah. Let's go to the next one, please.
Fair deal, fair deal. So, continuing on with our stories regarding film and TV, I wanted to get into what we have with Marvel. So, we had some news released this week that in terms of their strategy, that there's going to be a 3-film, 2 TV series strategy, and of course, we also have 2 new additions to Fantastic Four. So we have our Devourer of Worlds cast, and with that being Galactus, and we have an unexpected casting addition of John Malkovich joining the cast,
Yeah.
and it hasn't been told to us who he's playing. I do have a theory on who it is, but I will punt it over to you first, sir. What are your thoughts
Oh,
on
I
this
want to hear this.
strategy?
Okay, okay, we're
Yeah.
gonna do a
What are your
tease
thoughts
for the
on the
ladies and gentlemen.
strategy, and what are your thoughts on the 2 new additions that we have with Fantastic Four?
I feel like 3 movies and 2 shows is enough. Um, I feel like a early year one, and then a late year one for the TV shows, and then 3 movies and 3/3 of the and thirds in the year.
Yeah.
That works fine for me. I feel like they kind of got oversaturated, which can happen when you're releasing a lot of content like that. I think that's one thing that Marvel's always struggled with is oversaturating things. Like once they find out you like something, they just give it to you a bunch of times. Look at Jim Lee, X-Men #1. You just get it in your face all the time. It's just like, okay, I get it, I get it, I get it. Thanks, guys. But
Right.
um, yeah, I'm just really excited to see who John Malkovich is going to be. I don't think he will be. They haven't cast him as Doctor Doom. That would, but I mean, that may make sense.
So there have been some rumors that there is a short list of people that they are looking to for Doctor Doom. The short list that has been floating out there is that they're looking at I'm brain farting on his name, which is bad, but from who just won the Academy Award for Best Actor from Oppenheimer. Um,
Oh, Cillian Murphy.
yeah, they're looking at
He's too
Killian
skinny
Murphy.
to be Doctor Doom, though.
He can bulk up, but that's one.
I feel like he got to
Murphy.
stop doing that.
But again, if you're looking at it this way, do we really need to have him bulk up, or do we need him to have an effective voice behind that mask?
That's true. Because also it'll make them mirror images that they're kind of like
Yeah.
both kind of slender guys
Right. So
and
like
they
Murphy is
going
one
after the
that
same
that
girls.
has been floating around. Mads Mikkelsen is another, even though he's already been a character in the MCU already in the Doctor
Yeah.
Strange movie. But it's too bad that he was already in Doctor Strange, because I feel like that would be a home run. But it would be kind of weird to have someone who has it'd be one thing if we're talking about a separate universe, but if we're talking about the MCU, like you already played the character. I know we've been talking about like alternate versions or variants or like that, but it is the main 616. So ideally, well, I mean, I know in the nature, let me scratch that. I know in the nature of the Fantastic Four film that they will be in another universe and making their way over to 616. But again, it would be, I feel like it would be confusing for people. Um, if they're thinking about, well, did he play such and such character in this installment? I know it was years ago, but still it could, be a little jarring. So another person that they brought up, which I felt was interesting, was Ben Affleck. Like I could see Ben Affleck potentially being, Doctor Doom. That's another name that has been floating around too. Um,
Mm, I don't
uh,
know. I don't know. I don't believe Ben Affleck can do accents.
but see, that's just it. I don't think that we need, as long as it is a voice that is that has provides us with a presence. And just like you said, if you're talking about physicality, I feel like Ben Affleck would have the necessary physicality for that role. He's tall enough, he, size wise, like he is, you know, I feel like um would be enough of a presence to go up against our Mr. Fantastic. But
Yeah.
so those are the names that have been floating around for what is it, for Doctor Doom. And I realized I didn't get into the name for Galactus, and that's Ralph Ineson. But going into John Malkovich, my theory is, and I feel like this would work perfectly because it doesn't take too much away from distracting from the actors that you have, while it still gives him something to be that is a big deal. Is that he could be playing Papa Richards. He could be playing Reed Richards' dad. So like you have that ability
I
to
don't see that. I don't see
kind of
that.
in the same way that you have with what they do with Superman. A lot of times in all the iterations that we've had with Superman is that they've always cast, some big time actor to be the father of Superman, because we're going to show him for, a brief period of time. He's not going to be in the entire movie, but you need someone there to create or establish that gravitas with that character. And a good way to kind of establish that gravitas of the Richards family is perhaps, showing a younger Reed and actually having, Malkovich, play his dad. Like because that he is a character in the comics. He does have a lot of leeway in terms of his influence on how things progress, in the comics. And so it would be cool. Can you imagine that? You have John Malkovich as the father of Pedro Pascal. Like I could see them pulling that off and somehow making that work of father and son, of them being father and son, because you would need to have somebody kind of wacky and eccentric to be, a the father of the genius that is Reed Richards. So I don't know what your thoughts on is that, but that
I
would be
disagree
cool.
totally. I disagree totally. I think Malkovich is probably going to be Doctor Doom. I think he's going
Like
to be
here's
Doctor
the
Doom.
thing,
I feel
and
like
I
I feel like
understand.
I feel like um because Reed Richards' father's not really a big thing in his origin story or anything like that. Like I feel like that's like a DC-fication of the Fantastic Four story. I feel like John Malkovich is not a beloved like actor in the way that like Kevin Costner was the dad of Superman in the Superman movies. But like, you know, Reed Richards doesn't have that need for home connection because he's just like a brain guy, and it's just like it's my brain. So I think also that John Malkovich is very Machiavellian in like the movies he plays. Like even that Being John Malkovich movie is kind of like Secret Wars because like he's just in there and you're making copies of yourself and you're going in and you're figuring it out. So I feel like got to be Doctor Doom. If they don't cast him as Doctor Doom, then why would you cast him in the movie? Because he's such a good villain and
Because
stuff.
again, which is how I believe they were able to pull off this casting coup, is that you're getting this big time actor to establish your world, to establish, the pedigree of actors that you have in your franchise, in your initial film. Because let's be honest, you need something to be able to distinguish yourself from what came before. And what
Hmm.
better way to do that by having that component of who it was, the person that that uh, um is the father of this genius that is Reed Richards. So it allows you to get an actor like John Malkovich, because he knows that he's not going to be doing a whole bunch of movies.
So
He doesn't.
hold on, time out. What is Reed Richards' dad's name?
Nathaniel Richards.
Okay.
Nathaniel Richards. But yeah, like, in thinking of what they've been doing with what we have with Kang, even though we know that we're going to be diverting our attention away from Kang, we still have that component with the father, who is a time traveler, who is also a scientist like Reed is. And if we're already utilizing that theme already of multiple universes and things of that nature, it would make sense to have that component in there. It allows you to establish the level and pedigree of actors that you have in your project, and it allows you to attract an actor of John Malkovich's caliber, because he knows
Attract.
he's not. Yeah, he knows that he's not going to, in typical Marvel fashion, in most cases, he's not going to be in a ton of Marvel movies. He's going to be in part of one movie, and that's it. Versus him being Doctor Doom. The only reason why I say I don't believe he is playing Doctor Doom is because if we need Doom to be Doom for the next 10, 15 years, I don't believe John Malkovich would agree. He's not a young dude.
That's
Like,
realistic.
he's not a young dude. I don't believe that they would get someone as old as John Malkovich. Don't get me wrong, John Malkovich would be a terrific Doctor Doom, but it would have been that case, 10 or 15 years ago versus now, where I don't believe that that would be an ideal choice of someone that you're going to have an entire potential saga surrounding or centering around as a possible big bad in your universe. Because once we're done with Kang, like, that would be
Secret Wars and being John Malkovich is the perfect movie as to why I think he should be Doctor Doom. Because like
unless you brought up something, unless they make him the Beyonder and they introduce him as a Beyonder,
that would be very cool. Ah,
that could be a
ah,
possibility. He could be the Beyonder, because
ah!
again, that is something that could be a one-off, and he doesn't need to be in anything else. You can introduce him initially in Fantastic Four, in a little button scene at the end, because of the whole nature of the multiverse, and he may be a catalyst for how the Fantastic Four make their way from one universe to the other, because he is being playing that puppeteer role of the person above all these various universes of orchestrating all these various things. And I could see him being eccentric enough to be able to pull off that character of the Beyonder. So that's a possibility. So
That's
either
possible.
either Nathaniel Richards, you've heard it here first. I have no proof of this, but either Nathaniel Richards or the Beyonder, because he can come back later in the Secret Wars films, and that would be kind of cool if we introduce him in Fantastic Four as a Beyonder, and he comes back to be our actual Beyonder in Secret Wars. So John Malkovich going up against the entire universe of, like, Marvel, that'd be kind of cool. That would be a kind of interesting setup. So those are my thoughts. Those are my theories. Any last thoughts before we get into our final story?
I'm just gonna say it again, ladies and gentlemen. He's gonna be Doctor Doom.
He's
He's
not.
gonna he's gonna kill the Beyonder.
He's
And then everybody's gonna look like John Malkovich, and everybody be like, "Hey, hey, it's just like that one movie we all saw."
not.
But you
No,
know, I'll just leave it at that.
Yonder or Nathaniel Richards. You heard it here first.
Also another reason why he would be Doctor Doom is because he was be doing art avant-garde.
We lost Spillman there for a second. Spill, you lost your dude. Hold on.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, all right, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm back. And so, can you see me?
Yeah. You're good. Go
Okay,
ahead.
cool.
Yeah.
He just needs to it'll be a callback to that scene, and then I'll be right. But we'll see what you got.
Oh, I'm gonna make this. Trust me, I already feel it. This is gonna end up being a YouTube short of me just talking about how I was right about him being either one of these two characters.
All
So
right.
I can feel it. I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it. So, all right. Getting into our last story again, also a film and television story, and it also in the universe of superheroes. We lost Spillman there for a second. Let's see if we can get him back. Hold on, I think we got him back. Let's see in a few moments. Cool.
Okay, sorry about that.
Other component that I wanted to talk about that was superhero related, that you saw in the background, and this is our first look at David Corswet as a Superman and James Gunn's Superman picture. We have a look at what David is going to look like as Superman here. Our first look. I know there has been some controversy surrounding how people feel about this first look. I have my thoughts, but Spillman, I'll punt it over to you first. What are your thoughts on this first look that we have been provided on the newest iteration of Superman that we will get?
So, from what I'm gathering, the most interesting thing to me in this picture is actually not even Superman himself. It's
Yeah, in the
what looks
background.
like a brainiac in the background,
Yeah,
perhaps, or something
yeah.
like that. That's
And I will
crazy.
say the internet has been hilarious in the bunch of memes that we have gotten over what has been in the background in this picture. I will say that, but go ahead.
And it's like, yeah, so that's interesting to me. But I also saw some things on the internet where they had questions about how you actually put boots on, and internet people, y'all got to go touch some grass. Like, I don't know what is going on with y'all, but like, you just find ways to make things into weird things that they don't need to be.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
no, I agree.
I don't get it. I think it's kind of like, recognizing that your parents are people kind of things. And like seeing Superman pull his boots up, because obviously Superman has to pull his boots up because they're thigh high boots or calf high boots or whatever they are.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
feat in of itself. So I don't know. I'm interested in it. It looks cool. Um, this Superman looks a little bit more mature than most Superman that we're used to. So we'll see. How do you feel?
So, I mean, just right off the bat, and this has been something that I'm not going to take credit for saying is been an overall thought from many people is when we're thinking of Superman, we're thinking of someone who is larger than life in terms of the presence that they have. And if we're looking at the costume here, it's a costume that feels like it is something that is very loose that can't fit, is not really fitting our titular character. And maybe, I could very well be wrong. Maybe it's just in terms of this still. Sometimes when you have a still, it, doesn't, it gives us a weird look at a character, and when we see it in context, when it's like in a trailer or a film, it's going to be completely different. But just based off of just the image right now, it seems like something that doesn't fit, and that kind of takes me out of that character, because you're anticipating that if he's Superman, like he's jacked, so
He's
like
supposed to look like Shannon Sharp in them clothes, dog.
like you're assuming that like it's going to be something that he's able to fit, or versus something that is loose on him. So maybe, I don't know, like I said, in the context of the film, maybe there's something going on that we're just not privy to. Maybe it's something similar perhaps to what we had in the Marvel movie, or in the Marvel Spider-Man movies, where he puts it on, and because it is alien technology, perhaps that once he puts it on, it tightens itself or forms itself around his body. Maybe once he puts it on, so maybe it has some other component to it that allows it to work as a suit. Um, that we're just not aware of now because this is a still and it's not an actual scene from the upcoming movie. I'm sure we'll probably get a better idea in terms of the trailer. But outside of that, like, you know, I know people are kind of getting up in arms about, just like you said, of just that kind of a grounded quality of him having to put his suit on. But if we're really thinking of kind of the aesthetic that James Gunn has done in a lot of his superhero films, he really likes to get into the mundane components of what it means to be a superhero. If we're talking about like the Guardians movies, right? If we're talking about those films, there are a lot of components of it where yeah, there are a lot of these grandiose, very spectacle heavy elements of those films where we're seeing these characters do extraordinary things. But what makes a lot of these characters so endearing is him really capturing and grasping a lot of those mundane things that kind of bring a lot of humanity to those characters. And so by having your characters do very mundane things that any regular person would need to do, then it allowed you to be able to connect to those characters. And I feel like that's what he's trying to capture here in this still. um I know that for a lot of people, maybe they're up in arms because they're so accustomed to kind of that old school component of Superman, of him going into the phone booth and being able to use his speed to get his costume on and all of that. But I can appreciate what is being done here, because a lot of times too, going back to that ability to be able to connect with your audience and have your character, become very endearing to your audience in that mundane, mundane moments that you have with a character. It also allows for a lot of levity, a lot of humor, which is what something James Gunn is really known for, and he's been able to capture that in his prior movies too, and showing a lot of those mundane things. Not only does it provide you an opportunity to be able to connect to that character that under any other circumstance is larger than life, but it also allows there to be an easy gateway into some humorous moments that can come out of that. So I don't know what if you have any additional thoughts, but that's how I feel in terms of this initial image. I'm not losing my cool over have my pitchfork in terms of like what we're seeing here. That would be the main thing. Like I said, is just that it's just kind of odd that the suit doesn't seem to fit. But other than that, I don't really have any other issue with what we're being shown here. Oh, sorry. Go for
Yeah.
it.
I feel like obviously those are great points you made. I do think that some of these things that some of the things that they're saying about making Superman a man, like focusing on the man part of Superman,
Yeah.
is a good thing to do because that's really what I think the 70s movies did right and the most
Yes.
recent movies did
Yes.
wrong. Like
Yes.
even Henry Cavill never really seemed like a man. Like he
Yeah.
always seems like he's
Like
Superman all the
all the
time.
time. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's hard. I feel like, and don't get me wrong, like Henry Cavill, I still feel was a great Superman, but you still needed to be able to connect to that character on a human level. And I feel like the way in which it was executed, of trying to make it like so, dark and gritty, you know, it didn't need to be that way to be able to bring humanity to that character. You can still do that just out of, like I said, just like we're seeing in this picture, out of the mundane kind of, everyday things that any other, human being has to go through, you know, in a situation like this, you have those moments, and I know many of you, have had those moments of having to get up for work and kind of dragging your feet, like just like he is here. He has all of this chaos happening behind him, so he's like, okay, all right, I have to, get to work, and he's kind of dragging his feet to be able to do that. Like there is some humor there. There is some, relatability there of, something that many of us, as people, as being a human being, being a person, that have to deal with, or that you contend with, in life. So I feel like there's a lot of potential there for us to be able to relate to the character based off of what they're executing there, or what they're trying to do.
Yeah, but I still feel like if they can capture the heart really of Superman, because I feel like the heart's been out of Superman since, unfortunately 1994 when that horse accident happened.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Ever since then, it's
Well,
kind
I
of
don't
been
know.
like,
I feel like we still we got, a good, because I want to be able to provide that credit there. That I feel like Tom Welling also captured it in Smallville as well. Now that was going into, and
I
past
feel
the.
like a lot of that show was Superboy rather than Superman, or like
That's fair.
the
That's fair.
misadventures of Lana Lang. But
That's fair.
still,
That's
even still, because I don't think he puts the cape and cowl on until like the very end of that show.
literally the very last episode. Well,
So like
yeah.
to me, like I put that stuff over there. But
Okay.
like I just
Yeah.
worry that Gunn doesn't know how to use something that like my 4-year-old son understands what Superman, who he is, what his powers are, what he can do. Like I feel like Superman is like the lost trademark. And it's like it feels like they own the trademark to Superman, but they just don't know how to use him. And it's like they're serving Coca-Cola hot or something. Like instead of like, hey, if you chill this thing down real good, it'll remind you of your grandparents. And you'd be like, oh, it does. But like, I don't know. I feel like they've lost Superman because DC Comics was very successful with the dark and grittiness of Batman. That they can't do anything but do dark and gritty stuff with every single character they have. Like I feel like that's where they lost Wonder Woman a lot. I feel like that was even the like jokiness of Green Lantern. It was still kind of a gritty movie. So it's just like I don't know. It's just everyone has to be gritty, and it's just like too much grit.
Nah.
Too much grit. Put a little bit more water in there.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, no, I mean, those are my thoughts. Like I said, I'm eager to be patient. I'm eager to see what we have in the whatever the trailer teaser that we get is, because I know a lot of times it's hard to really see what a movie is about, and to make a decision on it just based off of a still. A lot of
yeah.
times when a still looks kind of weird, it's because it's out of context with what we have in actual footage.
Right.
So I'm waiting to, I'm willing to hold out, what that initial issue with the suit situation is by seeing, a teaser or trailer. So, but that's going to wrap up this edition of This Week in Pop Culture.
The
Thank you
late
guys.
night edition, ladies
The
and
late
gentlemen.
night edition,
Oh
after
man.
after
Yeah,
dark.
yeah. Yes, ladies and
So,
gentlemen.
but
Want you
with
to
that
know
being
we're on
said,
the night
with that
train.
being said, I will turn it over to Spills. Spills, can you tell folks where they can find you, man?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to the fans who wished me a happy birthday this week.
Yes,
I
happy
I, I I
birthday
really
again.
love you
Yes,
guys.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Two
sir.
thumbs up. We got some
Oh,
fireworks.
wow. Okay, you going all out today.
That.
I like it.
All that. And the love still Mother's Day, and to the graduates. If you graduating this weekend, welcome to debt, everybody. Welcome to debt. Brandon got debt. I got debt. Everybody gets debt. So welcome to debt. It's beautiful seeing everybody out. Love your families. Appreciate the people that support you. And then also remember, not everybody can support you in the same way, but they still support you. So let's do the thing.
Indeed, indeed. Again, I want to thank my co-host Spills as always, being my partner in crime, doing this week in pop culture. I appreciate it, and yes, happy mother. Well, first, happy birthday again to Spillman. Hopefully, that week, leading up, and I know that you try to do something. We had talked about you were doing something low key, but hopefully it was awesome, in that time. And happy Mother's Day again to all the mothers out there. And like I said,
Happy
with
Mother's Day.
happy Mother's Day to those that take on that role of being a mom. It is not an easy role. I feel like a lot of times, just like with some of the other roles that we have out there, is like teachers and things like that, that it gets undervalued sometimes. But time and time again, in interactions of the nature of what we have, unfortunately, happening across the world with different things that transpire, that it becomes more and more apparent how important that role is in someone's upbringing. That role that you have. Wow, there's a lot going on outside. But anyway, uh
Uh-oh.
that role that role with with mothers, and also as we get into as we'll soon get into a couple of weeks from now, next month, with fathers as well. But this week, focusing on mothers, how those roles are so pivotal in someone's upbringing, and how it can really have such an indelible impact on someone's life. But with that out of the way, I'm the host, Brandon, your host, Brandon Troy, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Troy ENT on X, and also Brandon Troy underscore ENT on IG, on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there. And as always, see you guys soon.